Hello. For the last 7 months, it felt like I'd been stumbling through a fog. Not a real one, but something emotional, heavy, and suffocating that had settled over my marriage to Stacy. What used to be a warm, lively home filled with laughter and the rhythm of two lives blending together had grown cold and quiet. The silence echoed off the walls like we were living in a hollow space. I could still hear Stacy's laugh in my mind, bright and contagious, the kind that used to lift my mood no matter how bad my day had been. I remembered the way she'd casually hook her arm through mine while we walked, a small gesture that always grounded me. But those memories felt distant now, like relics from another life, dug up and faded with time. It wasn't just that Stacy seemed distant. It was like she'd become someone else entirely, just wearing the face of the woman I married. When we did speak, it was stripped of any feeling, just short exchanges about bills, groceries, or what needed fixing around the house. The closeness, the spark, the effortless flow of conversation and affection that once defined our relationship, it had all disappeared. And it wasn't gradual either. It felt sudden, like someone had flipped a switch and shut the lights off. Every time I tried to reach out and reconnect, I was met with cold indifference or sharp, cutting responses that hurt even more than anger would have. I kept replaying this one moment in my head, me gently placing my hand over hers as we sat on the couch, a movie playing in the background that neither of us was watching. She pulled her hand away like I'd burned her. "I'm tired, Eric," she said, not even looking at me. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen. It was such a weak excuse, and she knew it. Later that night, lying awake in the dark while the ceiling fan ticked above me like a slow metronome, I realized something that chilled me. She hadn't initiated a single touch in who knows how long. Not even a brush of her hand. Nothing. I found myself thinking about the early days, long hikes that ended with sharing a thermos of coffee, those quiet nighttime talks whispered in the dark, the thrill of building something together from scratch. She used to be the person who knew me best. My partner. My anchor. Now, it was like I didn't exist to her. Her eyes passed right over me, like I was invisible, and her attention was locked on something I couldn't see, couldn't understand. Whatever had come between us, it felt like a wall, one that had been built silently, brick by brick. And the worst part? I didn't know why. I couldn't figure out what had changed so drastically. Was it something I said? Something I missed? Or maybe something I should have done but didn't? I kept digging through our past, trying to find the crack where it all started to fall apart. But every time I tried to talk about it, to ask what was wrong, she just brushed me off. "Everything's fine," she'd say, or wave me away like I was bothering her. Her voice had this cold edge, and her eyes never really met mine anymore. It wasn't just that she wasn't affectionate, it was like she didn't care at all. The little things were gone. The inside jokes, the way we used to finish each other's thoughts, the gentle touches that used to mean so much. All of it had vanished. I felt like a ghost in my own house, unseen, unheard, floating through a life we used to share. And I had tried. Believe me, I had. I planned romantic dinners, brought home small gifts I thought would make her smile, even gently brought up the idea of going to counseling. Each time, I got the same response, blank politeness, empty smiles, and some version of "not now," or "I'm too stressed." After months of this limbo, something inside me started to wear down. The silence, the distance, the unanswered questions, it all chipped away at me. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Not anymore. That night, I sat at the table, pushing around food I wasn't going to eat, and made a decision. Enough was enough. I couldn't keep swallowing this pain just to avoid another cold shoulder. She was in the living room, curled up on the sofa, her face lit up by the glow of her phone screen, scrolling like the world on that screen was the only one that mattered. Her face was blank, detached, completely absorbed in whatever she was looking at. I felt that familiar pull to just let it slide, to keep the peace for one more day. But I couldn't do it this time. I took a breath, stepped into her view. "Stacy," I said. My voice came out lower than I'd expected, tight and tired. "We need to talk." She didn't even glance up at first. A few more seconds passed before she finally lowered the phone, just a bit. Her eyes didn't focus on me, though. "Can it wait, Eric? I'm kind of in the middle of something." "No," I said, firmer than I intended. "It can't wait." I moved closer, standing between her and the TV. "I can't keep going like this. We're not partners anymore. We're just two people sharing a house, barely speaking. I need to know what's going on." She let out a long sigh, the kind that sounded more annoyed than anything else, and slowly set her phone down. But her whole posture was closed off, arms crossed tight, chin up like she was bracing for a fight. "What is it now, Eric?" I took another deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. It's about us. About the last 7 months. You've shut me out completely, emotionally, physically. I feel like I don't even know you anymore. And I think I deserve to understand why. Her face didn't soften. If anything, it went colder, her mouth flattening into a thin, dismissive line. I don't know what you're talking about, she said flatly. You're imagining things. Overthinking it. That hit me like a slap. I couldn't help the frustration boiling over. Overthinking. I repeated, my voice cracking with disbelief. Stacy, you flinch when I touch you. You barely talk to me unless it's about bills or errands. You act like I'm a burden. I'm your husband. Don't I deserve some kind of explanation? I asked. Stacy's expression didn't shift much, but her eyes turned cold, the kind of calm that feels more threatening than a shouting match. My body is my choice, she said, voice flat and emotionless. Frankly, you shouldn't even think about touching me without asking first. She kept going, her words hitting me like punches. I live how I want now. I have boundaries, and they need to be respected. I just stood there, stunned. I couldn't even breathe right. What? I finally croaked out. Stacy, where is this coming from? This isn't you. Not the woman I married. I shook my head, still trying to wrap my mind around what I was hearing. This started 7 months ago. It's like someone else stepped into your skin. Do you hear yourself right now? None of this makes sense. Something flickered in her eyes, anger, maybe contempt, but it vanished just as quick, her face going blank again. I used to be naive, she said sharply. I used to let you, and society, decide how I should act, how I should feel. But I've done the research. I've educated myself. She squared her shoulders, like she was delivering some kind of speech. A woman's rights come before any man's expectations. You need to start accepting that. You need to meet my demands. I felt like the floor had just disappeared under my feet. The woman I was staring at didn't feel like my wife anymore, just someone who looked like her. Stacy, I said, my voice trembling. What are you even talking about? Demands? I've never disrespected you. I've always tried to support you, to give you space, to meet you halfway. What changed? Did you join some group online or read something that messed with your head? Her eyes lit up with fury. There it is, she snapped. You just can't help yourself. Dismissing my feelings, calling me irrational, blaming some blog for my opinions. She leaned forward slightly, her tone dripping with accusation. And let's be real, Eric. This isn't about boundaries for you. You're just mad because I don't want to sleep with you anymore. That's all men like you ever care about, isn't it? She added, her voice rising. Your base desires. I rubbed my eyes with the heels of my hands, feeling the weight of everything crash down at once. The sheer madness of the conversation made my head spin. Was this really my life now? I lowered my hands and looked at her again, the pain clear on my face, but something else, too, something darker, more resolved. Fine, Stacy, I said slowly, each word heavy. If that's how this is going to work, if it's all about rights and choices, then let's go all in. My wallet is my choice. My money is my choice. So here's the deal, I continued. Starting today, you get a full-time job, a real one, and you pay half of everything: mortgage, food, utilities, insurance. All of it. 50-50. Let's see how you like living with mutual boundaries. Her face twisted in anger, turning red fast. That's financial abuse, she screamed, her voice cracking. You're trying to control me. This is emotional blackmail. Manipulation? I said, throwing my hands up. Stacy, I've been walking on eggshells for months, trying to understand what went wrong, trying to fix us, and what did I get? Rejection. Accusations. Silence. You treat me like I'm the problem, like I'm the villain. The air between us felt like it could snap. Years of shared memories were rotting right there in front of us, turning into something toxic. We both stood there, breathing hard, the silence screaming louder than any words. But under all the anger, I felt something worse settle in: grief. Grief for what we'd lost, for who she used to be, for the love that was just gone. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It wasn't even a relationship. It was just two people caught in a war neither of us signed up for. I turned away. I couldn't even look at her. For the first time, the word divorce didn't sound like a defeat. It sounded like freedom. An escape. The waiting room at the law office was painfully bright, the lights humming overhead. I sat there, staring at a bland landscape print on the wall, my stomach in knots. Ross and Fields. Sounded trustworthy. I needed trustworthy right now. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. I wasn't impulsive. Never had been. But the idea of living through another day, another week, another year of Stacy's coldness and that weird, distant version of her. It made my chest tighten. Brandon Ross looked just like you'd expect a seasoned lawyer to look, mid-50s, polished suit, calm eyes that didn't miss much. He shook my hand firmly and led me into his office. For the next hour, I told him everything. I walked him through the slow drift that turned into a chasm. The way she pulled away, shut down. The strange way she talked, like she'd memorized someone else's script. How I kept trying to connect, to fix things, only to be pushed further out. Brandon didn't interrupt. He just nodded now and then, scribbling notes on a yellow legal pad. No fake sympathy. No sugarcoating. Just calm, steady listening, exactly what I needed. When I finally stopped talking, feeling drained from laying it all out, Brandon leaned back in his chair, fingertips pressed together. "It's a tough situation, Eric," he said, calm and steady, but not unheard of. Drastic changes in personality, especially when mixed with emotional withdrawal and rigid new beliefs, usually suggest something external. He adjusted his glasses and gave me a look that made my stomach twist. She might be caught up in some kind of belief system, maybe something online. Or, he paused, it could be something a little more personal. More personal? I asked, already fearing the answer. You mean, someone else? It wasn't a new thought. I'd pushed it to the back of my mind, tried not to dwell on it. Brandon gave a careful shrug. It's one possibility. Affairs often bring with them secrecy, a shift in behavior, emotional distance. He held up a hand. But don't jump to conclusions. Right now, it's about figuring out your next steps. He offered two paths: file for divorce immediately or take some time, watch, gather more facts. Sometimes clarity brings leverage, he said, especially if things turn hostile. I nodded, slowly. His logic was a welcome break from the chaos in my head. Let's wait on the paperwork for now. I need to see things clearly. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop glowing in front of me. I opened up a spreadsheet and laid it all out: mortgage, insurance, taxes, utilities, groceries, car payments. Every shared cost. I double-checked the numbers, then split them clean down the middle. I could easily cover my half. I printed out Stacy's portion, folded it up neatly, and placed it beside a small wooden box I found in the hall closet. It was plain and simple, nothing flashy. I set it right in the middle of the kitchen counter. Quiet, but firm. When Stacy came home later than usual, she tossed her keys down with a loud clatter. I was already seated at the table, calm on the outside. I nodded toward the counter. That paper breaks down our monthly expenses, I said. I've paid my half. The box is for your share. She froze in place, narrowing her eyes. What is this? Some kind of game? She asked, her voice sharp. No game, I said evenly. You wanted independence. Boundaries. Equality. That means shared responsibilities. This is your half. Her face tightened, flush rising in her cheeks. This is manipulation, Eric. You're punishing me because I won't give in to your expectations. No, I said, steady as I could. This is me respecting the rules you laid down. You can't demand freedom without taking on some responsibility. I've carried this house financially for years. If we're operating under new terms, the finances change, too. You know my part-time job doesn't come close to what you make. This is completely unfair. Then maybe it's time you find something that does, I said, nodding at the box. First bills are due at the end of the month. Your share needs to be in there before then. For a second, she just stared at me. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed toward the bedroom, muttering about control and emotional abuse under her breath. I didn't chase after her. I didn't raise my voice. I just sat there. Honestly, I wasn't even mad anymore. I just felt tired. Like something deep inside had finally given up trying to make sense of it. The next few weeks went exactly how I expected. Stacy didn't look for another job. She kept clocking her part-time hours, scrolling endlessly on her phone, and, I could only guess, texting her friends about how heartless I was. The wooden box stayed right where I left it. Empty. I didn't react. I observed. Not with anger, but almost like an outsider looking in. Her pride, which I used to admire, had turned into something colder. Stubborn. She refused to take any ownership of what was happening to us. Any time I brought up something practical, bills, schedules, even groceries, she either dodged the question, snapped at me, or went silent. And that box? Still untouched? The day the mortgage came due, I sat down at the kitchen table again. Bills in hand. Box still empty. It was time for another round. Stacy. I called, keeping my voice steady. Can you come here a sec? She appeared in the doorway a moment later, arms crossed, scowl already in place. What now? I pointed to the box. The mortgage and other bills are due today. The box is still empty. We need to pay these. There are late fees if we don't. She rolled her eyes. I know, she snapped. You don't have to talk to me like I'm a child. Then what's the plan? I asked. My tone didn't shift. You said you wanted things to be fair. I've done my part. Are you going to do yours? That was it, the spark. Her calm exterior cracked completely. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Her voice suddenly shot up, sharp and full of blame. You're supposed to be my husband, Eric. A real man takes care of his wife. He doesn't nitpick every dollar. I felt a cold kind of anger welling up in me, different from the frustration I'd felt earlier. Pathetic. I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper, but packed with heat. You go on and on about being independent, constantly throwing words like boundaries and freedom in my face. You've treated me like I'm nothing for months. And now you want to throw tradition at me? Want things your way? Fine. But it goes both ways. If you want those old school rules, then start living by all of them. That means paying your part too. Her face turned beet red. For a second, I thought she might actually hit me. But instead, she spun around and stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard it made the whole frame shudder. I could hear her inside, drawers being yanked open, heavy sighs, stuff getting tossed around. Almost 25 minutes ticked by before she came back out. Her face was tight, her jaw clenched with bitterness. In her hand, she held a wrinkled handful of bills and some scattered coins. She walked stiffly over to the counter and dumped the money into the wooden box with a loud clatter that echoed through the quiet like a punch. There, she snapped, her voice soaked in venom. That's literally every cent I've got. You happy now? I glanced at the pitiful amount in the box, then back at her blank, unreadable face. Thank you, I said softly. But she wasn't finished. She leaned against the counter again, arms crossed, eyes lit up with fury. I can't believe I married someone this small-minded, this obsessed with money. You're just like all the others, controlling, selfish, needing to hold all the power. I didn't respond. I'd figured out by now that arguing only poured gas on the fire. So I just watched her, almost like an outsider watching something I'd seen before. Her words barely made it through anymore. But her actions? They were painting the picture clear as day. She wasn't interested in meeting me halfway, not in anything. What now? With her money gone, would she finally start looking for a real job? Or would she double down on the games, the guilt trips, the manipulations? I couldn't say for sure. But one thing I did know. Whatever we had, it was broken. Completely. A week passed, and I found myself lying awake, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't shake this feeling, like the silence in the house was heavier than usual, ready to crack. Since that argument over money, Stacy had gone quiet. Not peaceful, just withdrawn, still radiating that bitter energy like low-level static. Pretending was wearing me down. I wandered barefoot into the living room. She was out cold on the couch again, her phone loose in her hand, the screen dark. And then it hit me, this sudden, overwhelming impulse. I knew her passcode. We used to be open with that stuff, back when trust actually existed between us. My fingers trembled as I picked up the phone. I knew I was about to cross a serious line, one that would change everything. It felt like I was betraying who I used to be. But the feeling in my gut, the one fed by all her odd behavior, and Brandon's quiet warning, was screaming too loud to ignore. I unlocked the phone. My heart pounded like a drum as I opened her messages. Most of it was nothing, random chats with family, small talk. But then I saw it. A group chat named Gino. I figured that meant girls' night out. My blood ran cold as I tapped it open. What I saw made my stomach turn. It wasn't just Stacy. A whole group of her friends were in on it. And it wasn't venting or gossip. It was full-on confessions about cheating, stories told with excitement, encouragement, even laughter. They shared personal details, celebrated close calls, and joked about fooling their partners. I started scanning faster, trying to find what Stacy had said. And there it was. Clear, detailed, unashamed. She was in deep. Not just a participant, she was bragging. Then came the photos. Selfies with strange men. Big smiles, lots of laughter, more joy than I'd seen on her face in ages. The background changed. Bars, hotels, someone's house. And then, one picture stopped everything. It was her, posed on a bed, staring straight into the camera. Written across her stomach in lipstick was a man's name, Chad. And just above that, my name, Eric, crossed out, replaced with the word sea cold, scribbled in messy red letters. I could feel bile rising in my throat. I kept scrolling, fingers shaking. More pictures. Videos, too. Short clips of her dancing close with different guys, kissing them, slipping away into rooms with them. They were sharing it all in the group, laughing, cheering each other on, calling it fun. These so-called girls' nights, they were never about hanging out. They were planned opportunities to cheat. I even found links to dating profiles on a private app I'd never heard of before. That sealed it. Every time she said she was overwhelmed, tired, or just needed a night with the girls, she was out there doing this. My hands were trembling so hard, I almost dropped the phone. That calm I'd been trying to hold on to, gone, replaced by a white-hot rage that cut right through my chest. But underneath the fury was something even worse, a deep, crushing heartbreak. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something else. Cold, calculated, cruel. The contempt, the mockery. It hit like a freight train. I stood there reeling. Brandon's advice echoed loud in my head. Gather everything. Get leverage. My hands moved before my mind could catch up. Shaking but focused, I started downloading every bit of it. Screenshots, photos, videos, all of it. Every piece of proof got saved to a hidden folder on my phone, then backed up to a secure cloud drive. I checked 3 times to make sure it was all there. Then, slowly and carefully, I erased the trail, cleared the recent apps, deleted activity logs, and placed her phone right back where I'd found it, resting against her hand like nothing ever happened. I backed away and slipped into the dark kitchen, leaned on the counter like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My breathing was shallow. That woman sleeping on the couch? She wasn't just cold or difficult. She was a liar, a calculating, cruel liar, living a whole other life behind my back. The last 7 months? They weren't confusing anymore. They were fake, a complete fabrication. There was no decision to be made now. It was done. I pulled out my phone and texted Brandon. Get the papers ready. Now. His reply came fast. Understood. You'll have them by tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. It wasn't just about leaving anymore. It felt like taking my life back. Like waking up after being stuck in someone else's nightmare. The next morning, the air in the kitchen was thick, heavy with everything I knew but hadn't said. Stacy? She was all sunshine and small talk, humming like nothing was wrong, making coffee with a fake little bounce in her step. Morning, honey, she chirped, flashing a smile that never reached her eyes. Morning, I said flatly. My voice felt like gravel. She sat across from me, coffee in hand, acting like this was just another Wednesday. Then her tone changed, casual, almost playful. You know, Eric, she started, dragging her spoon through the coffee real slow. This is kind of awkward, but do you think you could spot me like $170 until payday? I swear I'll pay you back. I stared at her. After everything? After what I saw last night? I could hardly believe the nerve. Just hours ago, she tried crawling back into my bed like nothing had happened. I'd turned her down. Now it made sense. This whole phony attempt at warmth was just a setup for this moment. I leaned back in my chair, looked her straight in the eyes. $170. I repeated quietly. Actually, Stacy, I've got something better. Her eyebrows lifted. Hope flickered on her face. She smiled like maybe she'd scored more. Better? Like $220? She joked, trying to play it cool. I reached down beside me, picked up the manila envelope Brandon had sent that morning, and slid it across the table. This, I said. She blinked, confused, then slowly picked it up. Her fingers fumbled with the flap. She pulled out the papers. Her eyes scanned the top. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The color drained from her face. She looked up at me like the floor had dropped out from under her. Eric? She stammered, voice trembling. What is this? It's exactly what it looks like, I said, calm and cold. Divorce papers. I've made up my mind. This marriage is over. It's been over for a while. Her face twisted with panic. Over? Eric, no, come on. We can fix this. We just need to talk. Really talk. I can change, I swear. Just give me a chance. I shook my head. I was done with speeches. Done with trying. It's too late, Stacy. Way too late. I spent months trying to reach you. Months being mocked, ignored, lied to. The only reason you suddenly want to fix things is because you need cash. I didn't even mention the phone. Or the messages. Or the photos. Not yet. That was my card to hold. Her eyes filled with tears. She reached across the table, her fingers hesitating near mine. Eric, please. You don't understand everything I've been dealing with. I messed up. I know I did. But don't do this. Don't throw away everything we've built. I met her eyes, stone cold. Oh, I understand just fine. I understand the lies. The manipulation. The way you looked at me with pure disgust. This isn't a marriage. It's a trap. I want out. Her face crumpled. The papers shook in her hands. Tears finally started to fall. I don't want this, she whispered. Neither do I replied. Not this. I waved a hand, gesturing at the wreckage we were sitting in. I don't want this anymore. I stood up, carried my mug to the sink. Read the papers. Get yourself a lawyer. My mind's made up. Then I walked out, leaving her at that kitchen table, alone with her tears, her lies, and the cold reality of what she'd destroyed. The divorce happened fast and ugly. Honestly, it only moved that quickly because I had everything stacked in my favor, even if Stacy had no idea just how deep my hand ran. Brandon Ross handled it like a pro, with all the detailed financial records I'd kept, proving I'd been the one carrying the weight, plus plenty of notes showing how Stacy had checked out of the marriage emotionally and refused to hold down any real job. We didn't need much else. Her lawyer, some rookie she could barely afford, struggled from the get-go. She tried asking for alimony, for a bigger slice of the assets, but Brandon shut it all down piece by piece. He painted her exactly as she was, someone who hadn't just stopped caring, but had walked away from the partnership altogether, emotionally and financially. I never even had to bring out the big guns, the affair proof, the chats, the pictures. We didn't need it. Her behavior and the financial reality spoke volumes all by themselves. Backed into a corner, watching her legal bills climb and realizing she was about to walk away with next to nothing, she caved. The settlement leaned hard in my favor. I kept the house, the savings, my retirement accounts. She left with her car, her clothes, and a short-term alimony deal that wasn't going to cover the life she was used to. Time moved on. A few months passed, and I started to feel the quiet again. Not the awkward, painful silence from before, but a clean kind. Peaceful. I made the house my own again, one room at a time. Got back into work. Reconnected with some old friends. Even started hitting the gym a little. Eventually, I heard she'd moved in with some guy named Chad. Yeah, the same name she had scrawled across her stomach in that picture I can't unsee. For a second, I felt a bitter wave rise up, but it passed. It just didn't matter anymore. I was free. Or at least, mostly free. See, I still had that folder. The one packed with all the stuff I downloaded off her phone, the photos, the chats, the videos. It sat quietly on my secure cloud drive, like a loaded weapon waiting in the dark. The anger wasn't gone. It had just cooled, hardened into this slow-burning resentment. Every time I remembered that photo, the word loser smeared above my name in lipstick, I felt it flicker. I needed closure. Maybe even more than that. I needed to stand up for myself, finally. So I started planning. I researched everything. VPNs, how to clean metadata, where to post anonymously. I decided on Reddit. There's this one subreddit known for people anonymously sharing stories about cheating. The comments usually get pretty heated. I spent hours crafting the post. Made sure to strip out anything that could point directly back to me. Still, I left just enough detail to make it believable, true enough that it would land, vague enough to keep me protected. I chose the worst of it. That lipstick picture. A couple of videos. Screenshots from the group chat. Her and her friends joking about cheating like it was a team sport. I even included glimpses of the other women and their own affairs. One night, after a long day, I poured myself a whiskey, opened my laptop, and set everything in motion. I used a throwaway Reddit account, routed through a multi-hop VPN across a bunch of countries. Posted the whole thing under the title. I discovered that my wife and her friends had been treating infidelity like a joke, swapping stories, laughing, and even sharing screenshots with each other. I hit submit. And then I closed the laptop. The next morning, it had blown up. Thousands of upvotes. Hundreds of comments. People were angry, shocked, fascinated. The post climbed to the top of the subreddit, then started spreading to other places online. News blogs picked it up. Internet sleuths started combing through the pictures, trying to ID the women, connect the dots. And sure enough, within 2 days, it hit home. Mutual friends messaged me. Stacy's life, and her little groups too, had collapsed. Their husbands had seen it. Some recognized their wives in the blurred images or in the details. Confrontations were happening. Some were filing for divorce. That post sent out a shockwave, and it landed exactly where I wanted. For once, I felt something like justice. I knew I'd crossed a line, but at that point, I didn't care. They laughed behind my back, treated me like I didn't matter, like I was invisible. They started the war. I just ended it. A few nights later, I was fixing myself another whiskey, the house humming with that calm, satisfying quiet, when I heard the banging. Not a knock. More like someone was trying to bust my door down. I looked through the peephole. Stacy. She looked furious, beyond furious. And she didn't come alone. 3 other women stood beside her, all of them glaring at me like I was the enemy. I recognized them from Stacy's social media. They weren't just upset, they looked furious. I cracked the door open, kept the security chain on. "What do you want, Stacy?" I asked, cool as ice. "You jerk," she shouted, hitting the door with her palm like it would change something. "You ruined my life. You ruined our lives." The others joined in, shouting over each other. "You posted that video? My husband left me because of you. We're taking legal steps. You'll be held accountable. We'll make sure the truth comes out and people see what you've done." I stayed calm. I let them scream. Then I gave them the smallest, coldest smile I could manage and said, "Sue me? For what? Posting a video? Good luck proving it was me." That stopped them for a second. I leaned in a little closer and kept my voice steady. It was an anonymous post. No names. No metadata. Could have been anyone. Maybe one of your boyfriends? Maybe someone in your group finally had enough and decided to bring everything to light. I mean, you upset quite a few people. Wasn't it around 9 different guys between the 4 of you? I shrugged. Could have been any of them. They just stared, seething, helpless. And I shut the door. Hard. Their fury wavered for just a second, replaced by confused stammering. It was clear they hadn't actually thought this through. "You're lying," Stacy snapped, but there wasn't much fight behind it anymore. "Am I?" I replied, calm as ever. I slowly pulled out my phone and held it up so they could see. "Right now, the 4 of you are on my property, yelling threats, refusing to leave. Kinda makes you wonder what the cops would think." I pressed a button and started dialing. "Yes, this is urgent," I said loud enough for them to hear. "I need officers at my address. There are several people here who won't leave and are acting aggressively." That was all it took. Panic flared in their eyes. Suing me? That was one thing. Getting arrested? Whole different story. "You wouldn't," one of them whispered, her voice cracking. "Try me," I said, cold as ice. I gave the dispatcher my full address while staring them down, one hand still on the door chain. The fight drained out of them. I could see it, rage turning into fear. They stepped back, glancing nervously at each other. The distant sound of sirens started to creep in, faint at first, then louder. Stacy gave me one last glare, all bitterness and fury. Then she turned and walked off fast, dragging the others with her into the dark just as the flashing red and blue lights turned the corner, washing over the front of my house. I stood there, holding my whiskey glass, steady as ever. They were gone. And in the silence that followed, I didn't feel triumph. Not really. The anger that once burned so hot had turned to something colder, emptier. The revenge was over. But all that was left now was the quiet. Bye.